Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Stable Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, over 12 and a half years strong. In fact, in April, it's going to be 13 years that we have been doing this podcast. I'm Jeff Warren, and I'm here with my good buddy, Kris Willis from SB Nation, doing great work over there. My friend, how are you as we are getting ready to dive into this Atlanta Braves team?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me. Congratulations on coming up on another milestone.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, 13. I'm more impressed that one of my co-hosts, Len, is still around doing this. When he and I start, I cannot believe that he is still doing it. Well, I didn't think he'd last a year. and he's still here doing this. But really, like, we are so looking forward to on this podcast platform, of course, talking about this upcoming baseball season. Last week, kind of dove into it with our guest who covers the New York Mets. And with you this week, Kris, really wanting to dive into this Atlanta Braves team. You've covered the Braves team for quite some time. Again, over at SB Nation, you're doing some editing in terms of overall baseball content over there. And I really find it intriguing where the Braves are at right now. And I was hoping we could really dive into the offseason first, because looking at what the Braves front office did over the winter, I mean, it looks like they had a pretty good offseason, not necessarily what I would call a, quote, transformational offseason. They filled roster spots and holes. They made targeted and strategic upgrades, various positions. I would actually give the front office of the Atlanta Braves a B or B minus grade when in terms of reflecting on the offseason. What grade would you give the Braves front office for their offseason moves, and why?
I would say a B minus, I think, is fair. They did a lot. They signed a shortstop, Ha-Seong Kim. Unfortunately, I know we're going to talk about the injuries here a little bit. Unfortunately, he came down with an off-season injury. But they rebuilt the bullpen, adding Robert Suarez, brought back Raisel Iglesias, added some other guys to the mix there. I think the only reason that this is not a B plus for me is because they talked about adding a starting pitcher all off season, right, and they still haven't done it. And, I know we're going to talk about, again, as the injuries have already started to pile up. Yes. That's a glaring thing. I thought Chris Bassett made a ton of sense for this team. I know they like their depth. They like Bryce Elder and they like Joey Wentz. Both pitched well at times last year, but I think those guys are just depth, and I think they needed to add another guy to this mix that could throw 150 innings if needed, just to take the pressure off of everybody else. And so I think that's glaring. I mean, they still have time. Obviously, Bassett's off the board now, but they could still add another pitcher or two to this mix. But, I think that's the only thing that's really hanging over them, except for the unfortunate injury situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great segue into what I think is the biggest storyline for the Braves as they rolled into spring training. And literally, I mean, seems like they're rolling guys into spring training because the injuries that this team has had to continue to deal with. And I'm not saying like, even this spring training and throughout the offseason, I mean, this Braves team has been going through the injury bug now for quite some time. It must be difficult to be a fan of this team and have some optimism in terms of where they can potentially go as, August rolls around, what and the playoff hopes, postseason hopes that the team has, Kris. I mean, now look, Spencer Schwellenbach, he's going to be starting the year on the 60-day IL. Ha-Seong Kim has wrist injury, likely won't be back until May. Sean Murphy, Joe Jimenez, both going to be out for some time as well. The Braves just cannot afford any more injuries this spring training. It's not a positive tone, of course, for the team at the moment. And I would assume within the fan base, some folks are a bit downtrodden about this. How does the team, Kris, exercise that resilience here moving forward here? And I know it's early in spring training here, but how do they exercise that resilience with these trying times here?
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, they've always adopted this next man up mentality. They don't dwell on it. It's something that they've dealt with in each of the last two seasons, to different degrees. Schwellenbach's the biggest one. Found out yesterday Hurston Waldrop's liable to. It looks like he's going to start the year on the IL too, and we don't really know the scope of that injury yet. It looks like some bone spurs possibly in his elbow as well. So the hits just keep coming. I think for fans, we just like to go a week or two here without adding somebody else's name to the list. So but again, it's about the depth. They have kept Elder and Wentz around. Both of those guys are out of options. I'm sure that they're thinking about slotting them in. They did go out and get a guy that I was really excited to see him get was Mauricio Dubon. They haven't had a strong bench in quite some time, and I thought Dubon was going to be great addition there. Can play all over the place, great defender. Of course, when Kim gets hurt, then now Dubon's the starting shortstop. So that depth's being questioned already. So, it's just one of those things. Every team gets hurt. It seems like I guess we're really close to it. So it seems like the Braves have had an enormous amount. But yeah, the first 2 days of training. Yeah. It's pretty wild. A guy like Schwellenbach, he looked like a solid number one last year at times towards it right before he got hurt. And to see him already dealing with it again, hoping for good news there. But even if it is good news, he's starting on the 60-day IL. So it's going to be a while. They're just going to have to cover some holes and, hope this offense clicks.
I wasn't necessarily going to ask you this, but it's something we talk about in the world of Philly sports, whether it's dealing with the Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, and we actually dive into how the medical staffs are treating, how they are handling injuries within the various sports and for the various teams as well. And I wonder if there has been a narrative of, okay, how is the medical staff of the Atlanta Braves really handling this team? And not just from an injury standpoint when a guy is actually injured, but the preventative aspects of it. And I'm wondering, has that been a storyline within this Braves organization, the team, like the media down there? Have they focused on this at all? Because there are certain professional sports teams that really go through the injury bug, and the Atlanta Braves are right at the top in terms of this. And it begs a question: is the medical staff and is the sports training staff really doing all they need to and can? I would imagine they are, because these are professionals, but I'm just wondering if they're doing all they can to make sure these guys are just not going on the IL.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've seen that narrative a little bit,
Okay.
but, I think it's a little unfairly because, pitchers, bone chips and elbows. I don't know how you prevent that other than unless you're getting into these throwing programs. I think there's a common thread with Schwellenbach and Waldrop. Schwellenbach's velocity, he was hitting 9,900 right there before he got hurt. And he went to another level as a pitcher. But you have to wonder if the big velocity jump led to that stress fracture in his elbow. Hurston Waldrop sitting 99 the other day, reportedly in his live BP, and then came back in a few hours later with a sore elbow. I think it's just velocity. I think everybody deals with it. I think it's a little more. I just think it's a lot of bad luck. I don't get the sense that they're really mismanaging guys now. They're like any other team. They may not be quite as forthcoming with all the injury info as you would like. But
a lot of teams aren't. Yeah.
But I also understand. I also understand that narrative because 2023, it seemed like every single thing went perfect until the first round of the playoffs, and then ever since, it's just been one step forward, two steps back. It's just who's available today, and and who do we have, and here we go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you mentioned the pitching staff briefly, and I really wanted to dive into Spencer Strider because Spencer Strider really seems to be, I think, the most important long-term variable on this roster. With Strider, the question moving forward isn't with his talent by any stretch of the imagination. It's durability here. And I'm wondering, Kris, if he can return to that Cy Young form, are the Braves actually favorites in the NL East because of this one pitcher, because of that talent and what he's able to do with that baseball when he's throwing it? And if he doesn't get back to that echelon where we think he possibly can, what does that mean for the team's starting rotation overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a huge key for this upcoming season. I mean, he came back last year from the internal brace and wasn't quite himself. I mean, I think he was happy to would have happily admit that. He said something to the fact that he thought he hit a wall in the second half of the season, had a number of bad starts that really just blew his numbers out of what we're normal used to seeing normally.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to see him lighten up the radar gun the way we did before. I don't know if he's going to regularly hit hundreds, 100 mile an hour in starts. But the one part of it that I have confidence in him is he's such an analytical type of pitcher and person. Really, I mean, he had to rely on the changeup a lot last year because his fastball slider just wasn't getting the results that he was used to. So I feel like he, with a full off season, that he was healthy, he's going to come into this year, and we're going to see some things. Right before you had the elbow injury, I mean, he was working on a curveball. I think he wants to be seen as a pitcher more than a thrower, and I mean,
Yeah.
when he first came up, I mean, he was, if he got in a bind, he could just rear back and throw it by you. And I think he understands that's probably not going to last. I mean, it's good if you've got that, but it's probably not something that you can just rely on year after year as you get older. So I think he's going to be one of the most watched pitchers in spring, players in spring for the Braves this year. I think everybody's
Yeah.
going to be wanting to see where their velocity's at. They're
Yep.
wanting to see more so the movement on that fastball and the slider, because it was way down last year. But he's the type of guy though that I feel like with a full off season, he's going to come in. He's going to come in with some wrinkles this year, and if he's a number one or a number two for this Braves team, then that takes a lot of pressure off. But if he's more of a three or a four, then it's going to be it may get rough. So we'll
Yeah.
have to see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. An interesting storyline for this Braves team that all of us who follow the NL East, we're certainly going to be keeping our eyes on. And Kris, before we get to break, tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs out there if they want to connect with you.
The best place to find me is on Blue Sky, and it's Kris_Willis there. I hang out there mostly, and then just around SB Nation.
All right. Very good. Again, folks, Kris Willis from SB Nation. We're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to dive into some player-focused storylines and also, how this NL East is going to end up shaping up. We're going to get Kris's thoughts. We're going to be back in just a bit. All right, we're back with our good friend Kris Willis from SB Nation, and I want to dive now into some player-focused storylines with you. And I think what's interesting about this Braves team is there is talent on this team where if things click right for certain players, my gosh, it could completely change the upcoming season for this team and what this team is going to be in the NL East. So let's first start off with which Braves player, Kris, do you think could completely change this upcoming season and narrative if things click for that player? Who would that be?
I mean, there was several candidates. I mean, I could make the case for Sean Murphy or Ozzie Albies, but I think it's Michael Harris. Michael
Oh, yeah.
Harris, it seems like every year we've come in, we think, oh, he's going to take this next step. I mean, he's already a Gold Glove caliber defensive player in center field. But you've been waiting for that breakout offensively, and it's not gone well the last two seasons. I mean, last year, I think in the first half, he was one of the worst qualified hitters in the game.
He was terrible. Yes.
Got super red hot in the second half through July and August, and then finished the year cold again in September. So, I feel like if he's a 2020 guy, or 2025, I mean, 25 guy, possibly, I think he's got the talent for that. I think he could be the X factor for this lineup in a lot of ways. I mean, right now the Braves he's probably penciled into the lower half of the order, but I think he could obviously hit his way towards the top if he finally puts it together. So, you could also make the case for Ozzie Albies, he's been banged up and stuff, but I just feel like Harris is still young. And I feel like there's still more to unlock in his game overall, and I think he'd be a huge boost if he breaks out.
Absolutely. And I guess when we look at the talent on this team too, the follow-up question to that is which Braves player do you think is actually under the most pressure from the fan base and also from the front office standpoint? Who would that player be and why?
I don't know if it's really would be from the front office standpoint, but I think Austin Riley is coming into this season with a lot. Maybe not. Maybe it's self-induced pressure on himself, but he's had two lackluster seasons for him. A lot of injuries involved there, core muscle injuries. He hasn't hit 30 home. He had 3 straight seasons of 30 plus homers in 21, 22, and 23. He hasn't hit as many as 20. He hasn't hit more than 19 in the last 2 seasons. So, I think he's feeling a lot of pressure to come in healthy, full season, be that guy in the middle of the order. I mean, to me, if you ask me, I think Ronald Acuna Jr. and Austin Riley are two most important bats in this lineup.
Yeah.
I think if both of them, if they're clicking, then the Braves can fill in around them. But both of those guys are just impossible to replace for them. And I think Riley signed the biggest contract in franchise history. And, there's an expectation that comes with that, right or wrong. So,
yeah,
getting a full he hasn't played more than 110 games in the last 2 seasons, getting 145 games, 30 homers, that big bat in the middle of the lineup, I think would be huge for the team this year.
A lot of pressure on him, a lot of pressure on Ronald Acuna Jr. as well. Really, the weight of this team really is on them and us. Honestly, I think there's some of that on Spencer Strider as well. But as we're moving along, I think every year in baseball, Kris, we see players who really don't get their due. I see this as a Philadelphia Phillies fan at times, and of course, we know Phillies fan base. They can be a little hard on players at times, and even players on other teams as well. But we see players who perform well, but might not get, or they might not be the most elite players at their position, but they do the work that needs to get done to help the team remain consistent. So I'm wondering, who do you see as the quiet backbone of the Atlanta Braves lineup as we're looking to this season? Who would that be?
I mean, he's probably a bigger name than what you're actually looking for, but I mean, I think it's Matt Olson.
Okay. All right.
I mean, a lot of Braves fans feel like he's had down years the last couple of years, but that's because he set the bar so high in 2023 at 54 home runs. It's a 29 home runs last 2 seasons, but I think you have to look at it in the context of what's been happening to this lineup. He's played in he played 162 games every season since he got to Atlanta. He plays every day. He posts. He's in the middle of that order. He's driven in at least 95 runs in every season he's been here. He's been the one constant in this lineup, and it's been a revolving cast of characters around him due to the injuries. And so I feel like we're going to see his numbers go. If Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy, if Austin Riley's healthy, I think you're going to see Olson's numbers go up as a result of all that. But I don't know where the Braves would have been the last couple of years offensively without Matt Olson.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, with the injury challenges facing this organization over the past couple of years, where would they have been without him for sure? So, my friend, before I let you go, and to close us out here, I asked this question on our Opposition Territory podcast last week with our guest too. I'd like to ask you as well, because while it does stress me out, I always love to see some good back and forth between top teams in the NL East. Those top teams, of course, being the Phillies, the Mets, and I put the Braves in there as well, given what the Braves have done within our contemporary history. I'm wondering, what does a good divisional knockdown, drag out type of situation look like for you this season? I mean, is it the Mets battling with the Braves for that top spot, or is it the Braves going back and forth with the Phillies for that first place spot in the NL East? What are your thoughts here to close us out on, what's a good looking, fun division look like this year?
I just like to see all 3 of these teams healthy, and I'd like to see them battle it out all the way to the end. I feel like all 3 of these teams can be postseason teams. I've been on this podcast with you the last couple of years. I think we've said the same thing every time. I don't really know. I mean, this Mets crew is more of a different lineup now than what it was. So I don't know. I don't know. There's not as much history there. But I mean, we've seen Mets Braves. We've seen Braves Phillies. Obviously in the postseason, we've seen Mets Phillies even. And so, I mean, I just feel like this is almost like a three-way rivalry for this division at this point. So,
Yep.
I'm hoping that just the injuries hold off and we can
Yeah.
just see how good all three of these teams can be because I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for the Braves to go into Philadelphia in September. I haven't looked at the schedule, but I'm assuming the Braves go to Philadelphia in September and Ronald with a healthy Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley and then the same going to New York and then those two teams come to Atlanta. We've seen some great pennant races before. The Braves ran down the Mets in 2022. It was amazing. I just feel like this could be. I think the Philly. If you had to pick a favorite today, you got to pick the Phillies just because of the continuity they've kind of had. The Mets is they wanted to improve defensively. I'm not sure they have. Braves have the injury questions, but I still think any three of those teams are capable of putting it all together and winning a World Series.
Absolutely. Going to be an interesting season for sure. Again, folks, he's Kris Willis from SB Nation. Head on over to SB Nation. Check out all the baseball content. Great content as always. And search out Kris over on Blue Sky. Kris with a K, Kris Willis. And my friend, it was great talking to you. Always a pleasure. Come back, join us. I'd love to have you back on the show. Talk more Major League Baseball, talk more NL East. Come back and join us, my friend.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you asking me every year, and it's always a lot of fun.